Super Mario World is probably one of the most iconic video games in history, and probably one of the most well-known 2D platformers. Now I can honestly say that I can pick up a controller and play this game for hours even today. While Super Mario World did have a sequel, Yoshi's Island, for the Super Nintendo, there was another title that was meant to be the successor to the instant classic. However, plans didn't play out quite the way Nintendo had planned, and so in today's video, we'll be discussing Super Mario Wacky World. Now I know that people are aware of this game's existence, but after so many of you have been asking why I don't make a video about this game, I thought I'd dig up a few facts that several people forget to mention, and make my own video. So here we go. Now we cannot begin this video without speaking about the origins of NovaLogic. NovaLogic Incorporated is a software developer and publisher established in 1985 and based in Calabasas, California. The company was founded by current CEO John A. Garcia, whose background in computer software started in Southern California in the early 1980s when he worked at Datasoft. Now, game developer NovaLogic was assisting Nintendo with the Super Nintendo CD-ROM add-on, and was hoping to be purchased by Nintendo throughout their dealings. While Philips had the rights to make games for the CDI, a Nintendo executive suggested to NovaLogic that ports of Super Nintendo games were possible to be playable on the CDI. Now this sparked the idea of putting a popular Nintendo game, Super Mario World, onto the CDI disc, making the project an intended sequel or follow-up to the launch title exclusively for the CDI hardware. Now, developers Silas Warner and John Brooks were chosen as the game's designers and worked 24 hours a day for 2 weeks on the game, finishing only a part of one level to present to Nintendo as a demo. This is the reason why this playable prototype is so buggy and glitchy. It is said that their meeting with Nintendo developers began at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, and they had their short part of the game on a disc 4 hours before this even happened. Now Nintendo was very impressed that the two men were able to accomplish this, but because of the poor CDI sales, they were forced to cancel the game. This ended the CDI career of Warner, who had expected Nintendo's exact reaction. However, other developers such as the lead artist, Nina Stanley, stayed with the project. Now it was very clear that the developers were highly enthusiastic about making this traditional Mario game. NovaLogic was attempting to use as little funds as possible to produce the game in order to actually make it happen and attempt to get Nintendo's approval. Now remembering that this is in fact a pre-alpha, it is very limited as to what you can do in the game. Now Mario can only walk both ways and jump. There are no power-ups in the game at all. He cannot slide or swim, but it would have appeared as one of the abilities that was available in the game. Enemies are also not programmed correctly. For some reason they disappear when Mario ends up above them, suggesting the incompleted stomping attempts that they have made. Enemies can also not harm Mario at all and are stopped in their tracks if they are touched, even if it means them floating in the air. Mario also cannot die when he falls into a pit. Instead, he just floats on it. Now level progression is also not explicit but can be pieced together by the selectable stages. Most worlds have 2 or 3 levels, the first of which ends with warp pipes, whereas the last most often has a stylized M object holding tape, presumably a similar aspect to the giant gates, but ending the world instead of the levels. However, the mysterious M may serve another purpose, as one is found alongside a warp pipe in Igloo 1. A lot of people think that maybe this would have been some kind of bonus. Both M marks and warp pipes are non-functional as well, so one has to restart the CDI or emulator to escape the level. Now the development team has said that accurately capturing the sprites of Super Mario World was very difficult since the CDI had a different sprite making style than that of the Super Nintendo. To create their characters, they actually pirated their designs from Super Mario World, producing Mario as well as several Koopa Troopa variations based on the Super Mario World sprite. Greek Koopa clad in tunics and fig leaves, Night Koopas with feathered helmets, blue Eskimo Koopas and parkas, and dark Vampire Koopas with capes and fangs. The development team also sprited an enemy of their own creation, a walrus sprited true to the Super Mario World style. An interesting fact is that a few backgrounds of the game were all hand-drawn by the development team. They were in fact based on paper drawings. It's also important to note that the game's levels are based on real-world Earth locations. Now as far as the sound is concerned, the prototype contains music from the Super Mario World, and no sound effects are heard besides the jumping sound. This seems to be an early placeholder, as the idea for the final game was to take advantage of the disc format and use a flexible audio range rather than to port unimproved synthesized sound. Now version 0.11, the game's final prototype or pre-alpha, was finished on March 3rd, 1993 after the project had about a year of work. Approximately 80% of the game's art, 95% of its design, and 30% of its code was finished. Now there are 3 reported prototypes in circulation, one of which was sold in an online auction in eBay for $1,000. Now a certain prototype, perhaps the same one as the one sold on eBay, has been leaked to the internet in ISO form and can be played both on emulators and burned on discs and played in an actual CDI console. And finally, just one last quick fact is that on October 2016, Novalogic was bought out by THQ Nordic. And that is what we know of Super Mario Wacky Worlds. Thank you guys for watching. Check out some of our other videos if you'd like. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and give us any suggestions for future videos to the channel. And I'll see you all next time.